Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Oxford University Press. It's a book which I think will be of great help to people involved with competition law. It's called Competition Litigation. It's a substantial book, it's this book here. It's got a subtitle, UK Practice and Procedure. It's now in its second edition, and the general editors are Mark Brealey, Queen's Counsel, and Kyla George, and there are a large number of contributors. As I say, the book comes from OUP. We're very grateful to them for producing these works. They make our lives a lot easier when it comes to the production of detailed textbooks and practice books to assist us with dealing with the clients, and also, of course, dealing with the court and all the other difficulties that quite often arise, especially in this case with litigation. Now, the title that we've given our review is a long one. 10 years is a long time in competition law, quote, writes Mark Brealey, QC. So we welcome the new second edition of Competition Litigation, a decade on as we prepare for Brexit. I'm recording this at the end of January 2020 with a couple of days to go, and we're looking for all sorts of new things. Let's look at the book first of all. Let me explain. I actually did competition law as part of my bar finals module, but it was a rather different type of competition law from what we have today, I can tell you. Here is the book anyway. There's the front page. You can see it's a hardback and then you can see the spine. Now there's nothing on the back. The book is a heavy one. It runs to quite a large number of pages, 750 odd pages. There is the index. You can see the back of the index, and it's by paragraph numbering, which is very much the house style of OUP. So what we'll do is we'll just go to the front. There's the index at the front part of the index at the back. And then you can see actually the last page, you can see the paragraph numbering clearly, and the footnoting at the bottom, the footnoting there and the paragraph numbering. If we go to the front, there's the front page. And after that we've got the blurb from OUP. Then there's a preface. Now I've used some of what's in the preface for the review because obviously that does help us give a little bit of reality to where we are. There's the second page, and then we get on to the contents, a summary of the contents. Now you see the structure here. There's a summary, and it shows you the 24 chapters by title and then an index. Then you've got a much more detailed set of contents running all the way through. You can see very substantial. Then you've got the list of contributors. Then you've got the various, a lot of people involved. Then the various bits and pieces with the tables. Then you've got, of course, the cases, starting with UK cases. And then after that, you've got European Community cases, as it's called. And then after that, you've got general court cases, because obviously it's an international book. Then you've got the primary legislation here in the UK. Then after that you've got secondary legislation, UK. Then you've got procedural rules and practice directions, a lot of them too. See how the world is so complicated today. Then you've got Competition Appeal Tribunal rules and guide to proceedings there. So we're getting way through the book at the moment. Then after that, we haven't finished yet, numerical table of EC regulations. Then numerical table of EC directives. You wonder why people wanted to leave the EU sometimes when you see this. Numerical table of EC decisions. And then notices. Then international treaties. Then non-UK national legislation. Then a very useful set of abbreviations, and you can see them set out, a large number. It does help. I have to say that when I read for the bar and studied this subject, I would have been very happy to have had much more assistance with the abbreviations than I got at that time. Obviously today it's a lot easier. It is actually 30 years ago, so I'm afraid things have changed a little bit in that period of time. Now we get to the body text of the book, and you can see there's a short index to the chapter starting off there. Then you've got the beginning of the chapter, and you've got some footnotes you can see there. Then of course you start with the paragraph numbering, which you can see on the sides there, again the footnoting and so forth, and it runs all the way through like that. There's the middle of the book, and then the end of the book, of course. What you do have, again, chapter 24 is the very final chapter there. That's litigation in litigation in Northern Ireland and appeals. So there we go. Heavy book, an important book, I think, for anybody involved in competition law. It's a specialist area, an important area, and at the moment, I think certainly for 2020, it's going to be an important area as we try to unravel where we are going in the post-Brexit era. And I say that as a person who's never supported Brexit, but now that we are there and I have to start looking at what we're going to do next, I believe this book and others will be of assistance. And I suspect that both Brealey and George and all the other people, a huge number of people involved in this work, will probably have to produce another book rather more quickly than another decade. So what do we say about the book? This. We welcome the new second edition of Competition Litigation by Brealey and George, published at the end of 2019 by OUP. As Brealey wryly comments, quote, "Updating a legal textbook is akin to painting the fourth bridge, and delaying publication of the book to await Brexit is akin to a never-ending story." Ominously, Brealey concludes his preface with these remarks, and I'm going to mention them now. What changes are ever made to competition litigation as a result of Brexit and the second referendum will have to be examined in the third edition of this work. Well, politics had changed in December 2019 with the election of the Johnson government, who were mandated to leave the European Union, which will now take place the end of January. It should be January 2020, the 31st at 11 p.m. And obviously the final departure, with or without a deal, in terms of competition, the arrangements for trade, will be the end of the year. So that's the 31st of December 2020. And I think that is what we've got to look at as our end date. Therefore, we may see a new edition post-Brexit once the new landscape becomes firm and more apparent. And I think that's really where we are at the moment. The word second referendum, which have been included, obviously were something that was thought of at that time, but the clear decision to vote for Johnson and his Conservative MPs across the whole country has indicated the direction the country is going in. It's a firm mandate, so we know where we are. Meanwhile, what do we get with this second edition? 10 years after its first appearance in March 2010, about 9.5. Most of the chapters have been completely rewritten in the light of legislative changes and the substantial body of competition cases heard in the last decade. The editors and 41 contributors have included specific chapters on disclosure, very useful I found, and on damages. They also include new chapters devoted to legal systems in Scotland and Northern Ireland. I think that's very important because at the moment we really do have different systems, and whilst there is some overlap, certainly in Scotland they're very different sometimes, and I think we've got to start looking at that clearly with the effect politically of the power of the SNP as a base in Scotland, and of course the substantial changes that are taking place within Northern Ireland with a very different approach between the two main factions, which again will have, I think, an effect eventually on the way in which the jurisdictions operate. Now, how quick that happens I don't know, but it could be quicker than you think. Now, the contributors have provided us in this book with a comprehensive guide to all aspects of competition litigation within the United Kingdom. And of course, they're drawing on wealth of combined experience of barristers from specifically Brick Court Chambers and Monkton Chambers, amongst others. Work covers both practice and procedure in the UK courts, as well as the Competition Appeal Tribunal, CAT. All aspects of casework are reviewed, from commencement of proceedings to remedies, quantum issues, costs, arbitration, mediation, a very important one for 2020, and criminal proceedings, giving competition lawyers, I think, a full analysis of the litigation process. That's what we want. I'm very glad we've got it now, because I didn't have it a few years ago. Remember when this came out, it was still rather a long time after I qualified, and many of my colleagues did. So we welcome the full revision in the second edition, which is what we've got, and the authors have updated the coverage to reflect the coming into force of the Treaty of Rome and the Treaty of Lisbon itself. So obviously you've got the history there as well. The updates discuss a range of important new case law, including these specific cases, and I'm going to mention, they are listed of course in all the blurb, but I think it's important because it may be what you're looking for. We've got the as a Nobel case denying a privilege for in-house counsel communications, an important area obviously for us. Emerald Supplies Limited and another versus British Airways plc, providing further guidance on representative actions in English courts. Remember the jurisdiction point. Cooper Tire and Rubber Company Europe Limited and others versus Dow Deutschland Incorporated and others, setting out the jurisdiction of English courts in damages claims. And finally, consideration is given to the BCL case of time limits under section 47 claims. Now, other cases that are considered, which I think are of note, include the BAA versus the Competition Commission and Regina versus George and others, which offer a useful additional commentary on current authorities. That's only a brief run through, but I think it will give you some idea, because competition law is an important area where you have to keep up to date with the changing case law. The updated work also considers the increasing move towards electronic disclosure, which will, I think, gather pace quite quickly in 2020. We've been dithering with this for some time. We've had 10 years of pretty indecisive government, frankly, from 2010. And I think the 2020s are going to give us a lot of what we've been wanting, which is some proper domestic legislation and a proper re-evaluation of electronic disclosure and the use of IT in a different way, on online courts of course and others. The hardback second edition of the work was published on the 11th of September 2019. I'm recording this at the end of January 2020. Here's the book again, heavy book, nice blue cover, I like the blue cover. There it is, just opening it in the middle. Interim remedies in the High Court, there we go. A lot of stuff, I think, for both the practitioner and for also for the researcher. You've got a lot of information here which is very substantial, and I will say you can see again the structure, paragraph numbering, and you can see the footnoting. But I will say one thing, and that is that if those people who voted for Brexit think because we've got this huge amount of data here, detail here as well, that it's all going to change, it isn't. It's going to be here, but it's going to be different, and that's why I reckon this book is going to be extremely helpful for people, and there'll be another edition. So thank you both to Brealey and George, and also to OUP. As I said, you make our lives easier, and I'm most grateful. Bye bye.